Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to talk about F. Wesley Snyder's Dragonlance, Shadow of the Dragon Queen, and we're going to talk about Sea Elves. F. Wesley Snyder brings forward Dragonlance, Shadow of the Dragon Queen, and he completely recrafts Dragonlance and sets it into a modern setting and says, hey, just wanted you to be aware, Dragonlance is refreshed and is re-permissioned for Dungeons & Dragons, right? And there's been a lot of talk. There's been some cute talk, right? That are like, oh, you can play D&D and you don't need to play modern D&D. Like, you could just play the books you already own. This is a bunch of bunk. I want to get into this. If you are some sad sack dungeon master out there who says, we play Dungeons & Dragons, but only the books that I own, right? And I know you went to the FLGS, and I know you saw keys from the Golden Vault on there, but you're not allowed. Right? You're not allowed to buy that book and, bring forward maps that you can use from it as a player, and equipment that you can use from it as a player, and spells that you can use from it as a player, and new species that you can use from it as a player, right? We like old D&D, and there's a line in the sand, right? And only the books I own now that were purchased before the 2023 Manic Panic are allowed, right? No, that ain't gonna work, right? Like, any player worth their salt is like, wait, we like D&D, but only to a point? Well, if we're anti-D&D, why don't we just play a different game? And then, the moment one of your players says that, Sally's gonna say, because all those other games suck, don't have 50 years of history, and I ain't eating Brussels sprouts. I want to eat the steak, right? And you think I'm exaggerating, right? Like, you're like, oh no, Scott, people like other games. Go over to Professor Dungeon Master right now. He just put up a message that says, I don't care what your table is, you're going to have somebody who wants to play D&D, because D&D rocks, and every other game out here sucks compared to it, and you will never get past a single table without somebody saying, could we play a game that doesn't suck? It's called Dungeons & Dragons, right? So if you're out there and you're like, oh, well, I like D&D, but only these books. There's a line in the sand. And you better not get into that FLGS and be looking at those cool books on those shelves. You're not allowed. Only the books I own. You suck as a dungeon master, right? So this whole sly flourish little line, oh, you can play Dungeons & Dragons. Nobody's coming to take your books. And you could just play what you own. Nothing changes. No, right? You are a fool if you think that you can play Dungeons & Dragons without embracing the now, right? Because it just tells people, I am a crusty old grognard, right? I like Dungeons & Dragons, but I limit it to these number of books, right? And every player at your table is going to go, can I go get a modern dungeon master? Can I get a person who doesn't have dissonance, who's saying, I love D&D, but only up to this point in time, right? And can I go get a DM where I can stand in the friendly local game shop and look at the books and buy what I want? Not this crusty nostalgia gate of, of my horrible, repressive dungeon master. That's why you cannot play Dungeons & Dragons without embracing the now, because it makes you suck as a dungeon master. And if you suck as a dungeon master, right, immediately you ask the question, well, isn't the word game master just like definitionally sucky dungeon master who quit Dungeons & Dragons? I say it is. There you go. All right, let's talk about Sea Elves. So F. Wesley Snyder comes forward and he presents the Dargonesti and the Dimernesti, right? And these are sea elves, right? And what's really brilliant about this is we now have this conversation, right, that says, what if elves are not like cordoned off, are not contained, are not quarantined to the woods, right? What if elves can have mastery of the environment even when the environment is the sea? And it's powerful, right? Because what it does is it says, we don't have this, we really don't have this for dwarves yet, right? There are some hill dwarves, right? But what have they mastered? It seems like they're just wandering dwarves, right? It seems like they're exiles. There are dwarves that have been exiled out of the mountains, right? But here, the Dargonesti and the Dimernesti, right, are really elves who have environmental mastery when the environment is the ocean, right? And here we shatter the stereotypes, we shatter the expectations of what elves can do and what they cannot do. All that is my humble opinion, and I think F. Wesley Snyder did an incredible job of freeing Dragonlance elves from expectations that were no longer useful, right? And so, all that's my humble opinion, but what's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get into the comments, send your traffic. Please consider like, subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.